Hello everyone and welcome to a new video. Today I will talk about a very interesting topic, which is how you can install the runtime, the AVEVA Edge runtime over a Windows embedded computer. To cover that, I'm creating right now a virtual machine with Windows 10 IoT Enterprise. So I will leave this configure itself while we talk about some theoretical concepts, theoretical information that I have here. So for AVEVA Edge, we have four versions, four runtime editions specifically. The full runtime or SCADA edition, which is when you install the full product over a Windows workstation or a Windows Server station, uh, and you don't have any restriction about the software usage. You have the more expensive license, let's say, and that's the SCADA edition of the runtime. Embedded HMI and Compact HMI are the embedded runtime editions. Embedded HMI is switchable or is compatible with Windows Embedded Standard 7, with Windows 10 IoT Enterprise, LTSC, LTSB, um, and basically that. Compact HMI, it's the same than Embedded HMI, but it's compatible with more smaller footprint OSs like Windows Embedded Compact 6 and Windows Embedded Compact 7. So that's the OS compatible with Compact HMI. And IoT View is the runtime for Linux. Very limited at this moment, has very interesting capabilities. It's focused on IoT solutions. Right now, you can have a Raspberry Pi or a very, very small Linux-based industrial grade computer and load it with the IoT runtime and have communications with field devices and put that information directly in the cloud. It very, very interesting on that. And if we are going to talk about IoT, but it's not the topic of this specific video. I might want to talk about that in another video, but for now we will focus on embedded HMI and compact HMI, which are the licenses that we also sell a lot because customers purchase, let's say, a Maple Systems HMI, Advantech HMI, a back of HMI, a panel PC that has an embedded OS, and they want to have a very small footprint, a very, very simple HMI solution there. So these are very um, ideal solutions for this kind of requirements. So to install this, by the way, there are some limitations. You can find that all in the manual, the limitations, but you should consider for these differences. For SCADA, everything is supported. For embedded, not all is supported. And for IoT, as you can see, several things are not supported. But anyways, so you can install the embedded HMI, the embedded runtime on a embedded panel PC. So here we have a guide, which is install the pre-runtime software on a Windows embedded device. If you follow this guide, it says it will tell you which OSs are supported for Windows Embedded Standard, for Windows Embedded Compact, which are the hardware requirements, which are the instructions to install the embedded runtime. So what I will show in this video is basically a following of these instructions. I will follow these instructions to install the embedded runtime on an industrial computer. So let's start. Let's see if my virtual machine finished its installation. So let's join to the main user password. I don't need a password for this. No, I don't need this. I would, put all this to no, and that is what I recommend doing for any installation, but it's on you. The first thing that you need while the virtual machine starts is define which installation you are going to do. So let me put here my view of my files, Windows Explorer. So we have the AVEVA Edge installation here in AVEVA and AVEVA Edge, and this is the main folders structure for the installation folder, for the folder where AVEVA Edge is installed. So the full runtime files are inside this bin folder. We don't need to touch that for now. The files for the embedded installations are in the Redist folder. So if we go inside Redist, we will see here that we have two options for embedded runtimes. WinCE 5.0, even when this is compatible also with 6.0 and 7.0, and WinEmbedded. As you might imagine, this is the runtime files for Windows, for CView, for Compact HMI, for Windows Embedded Compact. And these are the files that we need to use for Windows Embedded Standard and Windows 10 IoT to install the Embedded HMI or Embedded View. So since we are installing into a Windows 10 IoT Enterprise station, I will go inside the Win Embedded folder. So here in Win Embedded, we have two folders, the bin and DRB. We need to go inside bin. And what I need to find here is the CE server.exe application. So if I copy this application, maybe you can put it in a pen drive and any other place that you can use as a temporary way to transfer the CE server application. I can copy and paste here to paste it into the virtual machine. Virtual machine already started, but let me install the VMware tools. So I can copy paste, etc. Have a better performance on the virtual machine. The File Explorer, yeah. So let's install the VMware tools. I'm doing this so you can see that this is a fresh virtual machine installation. There is no tricks behind this. And I'm saying this because installing a Windows embedded and the AVEVA Edge embedded runtime is very, very simple. So now you have everything set up on the computer, installing the embedded HMI runtime is very straightforward. So I was saying that you need this C server.exe. Of course, if you are going to install into Windows CE station, you might want to identify the processor that the Windows CE device has. Some Windows CE panel PCs have Intel processors, others have ARM processors, and older devices have X-scale processors. You might want to select one, and the most common is ARM. So if you go here and you go inside the bin folder, you will find also the CE server.exe application that you might need in this case for Windows CE. So let's go back to Win Embedded, the CE server application for Win Embedded. Okay, this will make my virtual machine to restart, which is fine. And this application, by the way, if you try to run it, it will say this program can only be executed on embedded systems. Support information, product info, blah, blah, blah. Because all these files are compiled for embedded OSs, which is Windows 10 IoT Enterprise is considered an embedded OS. And that's why this should run on the virtual machine. So let's wait for the virtual machine to start while I have this. By the way, this C server.exe application, its name is remote agent. So every time that in the manual, you will find the remote agent, it will mention the remote agent here, for instance, Locate the correct version for the remote agent. The remote agent is C server.exe. If you get the remote agent mentioned anywhere in the manual, it's talking about C server.exe. So our virtual machine is up now. Let's copy this and let's paste it into the virtual machine. Again, if you are working on a real environment, you might want or you might need to use a pen drive or any other place to put the file temporarily while you transfer it to the target station. So what I will do now is open a file explorer and I will create a folder in the C drive. You can put it anywhere, but I want to be very careful with this and very clear. So I will create a folder here in C. I will call it HMI. So here in HMI, I can put my C server application. And here, the only thing that I need to do is start it. It requires administrative permissions to start. It will tell you, well, the firewall. You can say, okay, allow all that. Allow that connections can access to the C server, to the remote agent. It will tell you if you want to configure the security now. You might want to say, no, I don't want to do it. And it says, okay, do you want to suppress that message in the next startup? Yes, I want to do that. So with this running, you can connect the development environment to it. So what I will do is here, I will create a new project and I will call it embedded test. And something to consider very important is that for an embedded runtime, you need to select embedded product type. So here we have, for instance, embedded AVEVA Edge 150 tags and Windows AVEVA Edge 150 tags. If you are going to create a project for an embedded computer, you need to select the embedded version of that. You have the same options for all the other versions up to 4,000 tags. So I will select this and we click on OK. Resolution doesn't matter. For this demonstration, the security system, I don't need the security system either. So what I will do is I will create a screen where I will put a button. This button will write into a tag, and this tag will increase its value by 1. Every time that I press the buttons, I will create a tag on the go. And I will put that in text box. So text box with tag 1. So if I save it, you call it main. If I test my screen, every time that I click the button, the value of the tag will be increased. Very simple. So I want to have this project into my embedded computer. To do that, I need to connect to the embedded computer. So I need to specify here the embedded computer, the target station, IP address. I will get that information from here from the remote agent. If you have the remote agent open, you will have the IP address for this station there available. So let's put that. We connect. It will say, okay, it's not security is configured. Do you want to connect? Yes, I want a secure connection. Do not ask. No, I don't want to ask for it again. But you all can also configure security. I encourage you to configure security. Be safe if you are working on a real environment. Since this is a test, the security doesn't matter so much. So here you will have a status message which says connected to the remote device embedded view, but embedded view is not installed, and it's not really installed. So then the first time that you connect to the embedded device, what you need to do is click here on the install runtime files button. After clicking on it, here the remote management tool will connect with the remote agent tool To transfer all the runtime system files automatically, it will not only transfer the files, it will register the controls that you need for the runtime to work properly. It will do a lot of things while the transferring is done. Right now it's transferring, for instance, all the drivers files or all the drivers libraries. And after finishing, it will tell us that it finished. So let's wait for it to finish. Depending on your network speed, it might take a couple minutes, several minutes, some seconds. Here, as you can see, we are in a virtual network environment, but it takes a couple minutes even when we have that, because what we transfer are very a big number of files. It's not are not a lot, but we have several files that are transferred during this process. So the system files are installed now, but you can see here that we still have this message saying that embedded view is not installed. To clear that message, you only need to disconnect from the remote agent and connect it again. And it will say now that it's connected to CView and the version of AVEVA Edge that you have installed on the embedded computer. We'll tell you also some information about the station where it's connected, Windows 10 Enterprise version, blah, 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 Windows version, blah, 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 processor evaluation, TSB, blah, blah, blah. Some information about the station where you are connected will be here. And at this point, you are ready to transfer the project. So here in project, you need to click on download. The first time that you do this, it will tell you, okay, I cannot find any folder called embedded test inside the HMI folder on the C drive. So do you want to test to create it? You can say this, yes, I want to create it. Or you can put it in any other folder, but by default, it will create a project folder inside the main folder that you created for the system files. So after sending the files, the project files, you can click here and run, and it will say, okay, the runtime started. Since I didn't install a license, it will say, okay, we don't have a license, so I would run for 2 hours in demo mode. That's fine. You can do that. So let's allow access, and you can see the runtime starts in full screen mode. If I click here, I have the action executed. I can control also here the runtime to stop it from the development environment, and the runtime stops. You can also start the runtime from the remote agent. If you click here and start, it will start the runtime also. Here in the remote agent, you can also configure the options here to make the runtime start when the remote agent starts. So if you open the remote agent, it will automatically start the runtime. So let's take a look at that. So let's start the remote agent, and after starting the remote agent, the runtime starts also automatically. So we can stop the runtime. There is no way to stop the runtime from the remote agent. If you want to stop the runtime in the same runtime station, you can go here to the CView icon, click and exit, and it will stop the runtime too. If you don't want to depend on the development environment, if you already transferred the system files, if you already transferred the project, probably you won't need the development environment anymore. You can do everything else on the runtime station. What else? In the setup option, you have also the license menu where you can change the license. So here you have the hardware identifier or site code, and you can put the activation code here or site key. It's also called activation code or site key to activate the license. If you have the connection to the station through the remote management tool, You can also install the license through this window. As you can see, the site code here is the same than here. So it's the same installing the license directly by typing in the remote agent, or you can do that also maybe more easily in the remote management. What else you can do? You can start the runtime automatically when the Windows Embedded Station starts, when it boots up. So to do that, very, very simple. You might want to open the folder, the Windows Startup folder, which by the way, I don't remember where exactly is. So let me check. Windows Startup folder. And it's, yeah. Here. So you go, I will open another File Explorer instance. You go here. This is the folder where Windows starts programs automatically at bottom. So to do that, you might want to start the C server application. So you might want to create a shortcut for the C server and put this shortcut inside the Windows Startup folder. After doing that, if you reboot the panel PC or it's restarted after a power problem, power blackout, or the operator restarts manually the computer, and you want to have the InduSoft or AVEVA Edge application running automatically, you can do that. So let's wait for the station to reboot. And after rebooting, it might or might not work. In this case, it didn't work. And why it didn't work? There are a couple options. It might be the user access control. So if you maybe set this to the minimum and then restart, sometimes doing only that helps. Sometimes it doesn't help and you need to do a couple of other things to make it work. Seems like it won't work this time neither. So what you can do, it's going to the folder, to the startup folder. Here you can create a text file, folder where we can create a text file here in the desktop. And let's call it startup. Here you can write start and the path to the C server. Where is the C server? It is in the C drive and inside HMI. And here is C server. So let's put the path chmi C server.exe and save it. Something that we need to have here is that we need to be able to see the file extensions. So here we need to change the file extension from txt to bat. So when you execute this, it will start the C server. And the C server will start the runtime. So we need that. And let's go back to the desktop. So we can put this inside the Windows Startup folder. We don't need the shortcut anymore. So let's put the bat file there. And let's restart. So you might be asking why I need to do all this to make the runtime start at the beginning. It is because the C server.exe application requires elevated permissions, requires administrative permissions to start in the beginning. And this version of Windows 10 IoT Enterprise doesn't allow that. Somehow it doesn't allow start applications when Windows boots up with administrative permissions. Probably due security reasons, probably there is a way to disable that. But to make it simple, you can do what I just did. So let's wait for it to execute the bat file. As you can see here, it's executed. It starts the C server. Yeah, the C server was there, and now the runtime is started automatically. Of course, you don't let me stop the runtime. I don't need it anymore. Of course, you can delete this because you already have that in the Windows startup folder. You have that bat file there. If you don't want to play with the bat file, you can start directly also HMI. You can play with the C view application. So if you start this, let's see what happens. If you start directly the C view, it will start the runtime. It won't start the C server. Well, I can keep the C server and do it again. So you double click this, it will start the runtime without C server. So if you don't need the C server, you can do that also. And this guy doesn't require administrative permissions. So you can put it in the desktop, a shortcut to it, and go to the startup folder, maybe delete the bat file and put the shortcut inside this folder. And then restart. And it should work because it doesn't require administrative permissions. waiting. And we have the license information here. If you have a license, you won't have that message. So the HMI, the user interface will be displayed automatically without any human intervention. One last thing that I wanted to discuss here is the firewall. It's very important to have the rules configured on the firewall. As you can see, when I started the C server, when I started the runtime for the first time, a firewall message appeared saying, "Do you want to have access to this application? The firewall? Do you want to create a rule?" Automatically, I said yes, create a rule, allow access, etc. Sometimes you ignore those messages and you block the access to the applications. So sometimes it's a good idea just for testing, turn off the firewall and start the test and check if you can reach the remote agent, for instance, or if you are going to talk with a PLC and it doesn't work, but everything is configured correctly, you might want to check the firewall. You can also, if you need to create the rules. So for instance, here the C server rule was created, the C view rule was created because that's what I did while I was configuring, but not all the people do that. So you might want to have the firewall disconnected, the firewall, turn it off while you are doing the installation, the tests. But I believe that's it. Again, from here you can do everything. Uh, very, very simple. I hope it's clear and I hope it helps. Also, if you have questions, comments, please leave that in the section below, the comments section below. Thank you for watching.